All right, guys, Joseph here once more. Today we're going to be doing an object transition. Can we do that? All right, but before we get to it, I would like to please implore you guys to like my videos and share the video because it helps me. And if you're new to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel because I do tutorials like this almost every time. So today we're going to be looking at how to do a transition between object and another object. So let's quickly look at what we're going to be doing today. So you can see we have a way of um, transforming one object into another. It's a very simple technique. But the thing I quickly want to talk about here, if you look at this object, is the bounciness to this. And here, the can are polygonal objects. So that means you don't use the normal method to adding the effector to this. So we're going to be looking at how to do that here and to do the basic things here. So without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. All right, guys. So if you look at the scene right here, you pretty much in the animation, if you look at the animation well, you notice I only have three major setups there. So I have the cloner object, I have this text, and I have the can. So those are the three major animations I'm going to be looking at and setups that I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to open a scene which I've already copied out. So I've copied out the two cans. So basically, this is everything I have here. Nothing more. Nothing more. Just to quickly do the setup. So I'm going to start the setup by creating the clone object and just possibly hide this two because I'm going to be doing two types of setup, one for the Coke and one for the Pepsi. So I'll start with a sphere and bring this sphere down. Okay, so I have this. Then I'm going to bring up my cloner object. So once I bring up my cloner object, bring the sphere as a child of the cloner object. So the other thing I'm going to do is to make this cloner object mode, make it objects and put in the peps the first clone rather. So let me just quickly hide this. So I'll put the first clone there. So you're going to have this cloned on every vertex, and that is not what I want. I want to put it on the surface. So I'll go to surface. So I have this clone. So depending on whatever you want, how many you want, you just change and add the count there. So let's say in this case, I'm going to work with 30. And now if you look at the animation, these guys are not on the surface. So what I did was to push them away from this surface. All right, so for me to do that, I'm going to select the cloner object and create a random effector object. So I have this random effector. So what I'm going to do to the random effector is just to look at the street position that I have here. So let's try 20, 20, 20 and see which one is not too. So if I bring this and make it an X-ray object so I can see what I'm doing. So this will not be seen actually, so really we don't really need that. Or we could just select this and create a selection, all right, and get rid of those ones that we don't want to see. So I don't want to see these ones here. So that means before doing that, I need to first off know the number of clones that I want. So let's say I want to have 30 clones. So I don't want to see these guys here. Hold down control. I don't want to see these guys. Similar thing here. Hold down control. I don't want to see this and this. I don't want to see this. Any ones that are inside, I don't want to see them. So what I'm doing is holding down control to paint over the ones I don't want. So I don't want this. And then I think I'm fine. I've already selected it. So remaining this. So that's how you go through the whole object that you don't need and just paint over the object. So once you are done painting over the object, we go to this invert. So the reason why I'm inverting is so that I'm going to select the ones I want this cloner to affect. So I can just go to the cloner, go to my selection and drag that over to my selection. So all right, so we can now come here and start changing this. So let's try 25, 25, 25. So we have that. So we still have some more. So you can just refine that yourself. So another thing we'll also do is to go to the scale and randomize the scale. So we'll do this 3, or let's try 2. So we have that. Okay, so once we have this, we can even increase this clone or even get rid of this. We might not even need that actually. So we'll get rid of this selection and increase the clone to, let's say, 50. So we have that 50, then we can go to the random and change this back. So let's say something like this. So once we are done with that, the next thing we'll do is we need to look for a way to make sure those clones are not touching one another. So you look at those that are touching, but this looks fine, they are not really touching. But if they were, what you would do is select this and go and add a push apart. So what the push apart will do is going to push them all apart. So you can see even those ones inside would have been pushed out of that. So what you can now do to the push apart is just start working with the radius. So it's going to look at this radius value. So anything that is between this radius or below that radius will be deleted. All right. So it tries to push them apart. So what I did was to use a push apart to push those things apart. Then also, so I call this distance. Then add another one. Oh, look at my spelling. You add another one there. So you select the cloner. So the second push apart you're going to add is not going to serve as push apart now. It's going to serve as scale apart. So it's going to scale them all apart. So you can use this to choose the kind of scale that you want. Okay. So you have that. So let's try 30. So we can always go to this. So let's change this to scale. You can always go to the distance and reduce that. Or maybe 25 or 20. I think this is too much. So all these things you can trick them by always going back, changing things, and even to the random effector to trick those things. All right, so that's how I did that. So once you are done with that setup, so what you actually need is just one of these. Then you are going to group all of them together. So you select this, Alt G to group them. So this is so let me just rename this. So we have calm red, and then calm blue. All right, so we have that for the red. So this is going to be the red setup. So I'm going to duplicate this and make this the blue setup. So you know what to do. So for the blue setup, all you need to do is just change the cloner from this red can to the blue can. So that is done. So if you hide this, bring this, so you are pretty much with what you have. So what you can just do is to randomize, but then you want to have a seamless transition. So you want to make sure you have the same seed value, so that when you are animating, it seems like they are the same clone. Hope you get that. So once you are done with this setup, the next thing is let's start working with animating this guy here, this clones. Yeah. So what I want to do is the kind of setup I want to be able to animate such that as this scales down, this other one scale up. All right. So I'm going to group those 2 in a group. And the reason why I'm grouping them is because I don't want to rotate them. I want to animate this on the rotation. All right, so I just want to animate them on scale. So this is going to be the control for rotate. So what I do to this is, let's just start the rotation. So I'm going to start from here and keyframe that and move to this. I'm going to undo that. So I want to rotate this guy about this axis here, about this axis. All right. So what I will do is to first off make this 0. Then I'm going to keyframe that. So as we move to the endpoint, I'm going to make this let go towards this direction, minus 360, and keyframe that. Then if you play this through, you have that. But you notice what is happening. It's the rotation is kind of not seamless because we have an easy ease to it. So we need to break that kind of rotation. So what you do is select this and right click. You can just pause this and right click here. So you can just select this and then right click and go to F curve. So you want to change this guy from this easy. So you just Control A to select all and use this to convert to linear. So if you play now, it goes and continues. So you see that. So that is that. So maybe we should even increase this scale because it's kind of slow. So what we'll do is go to the endpoint. We'll multiply this by 2 so that we have 2 revolutions. So if you do this, it moves fast and that. So like that. So that is for this animation. You notice the good thing here is that because we have added this clone over to this, so as it rotates, the clone also rotates with it. So we don't really need to do anything with this clone anymore. So what we need to work on is this. So the next thing is, how can we scale this down and still add, because if you look at the animation, the object or the can bounces every time it scales up and scales down. So I added an effector to it, but right now this is not a Mograph object. How can I convert it such that by the time I add an effector to it, it works with these guys? And that will be done by the time I start adding that. But before I do that, let's do the scaling up and scaling down of this. So at this point, I want to have a time lapse of, I just want to have this tolerance of 10 frames. So I'm going to animate or keyframe the scales for the red can. So I'm starting the red can at this. So we'll go to blue can, we'll make this 0, 0, 0, keyframe those two. So all right, so I'm doing both at the same time. So at this point, this is scaled up while this is down. So once we get to this place, somewhere here, let's just say somewhere here, 45, we want this to scale down, 0, 0, 0, keyframe that, and we want the blue to scale up, 1, 1, 1, keyframe that. So you notice what we have. So we have this. All right. So what we'll do now next is to go to where we want this to end. So let's say somewhere here. We'll scale the blue down again, 0, 0, 0, and scale the red up, 1, 1, 1. So if you look at this, scale down and scale up. So you see what happens as it scales down and scale. It just there is no time for it to wait before it starts scaling down. So what I will do is to bring this down a little bit here and make sure both of them is selected before I do that, because right now you notice what happens here. So let's just do this. So I'll make sure I have both selected. So when I select this, I know that both of the keyframes are selected. So if I hold down Control and drag this up to this place, so there is going to be a rest time before it starts scaling down. So if you look at this down, scales down and wait and scale. So we can further change the time at which this scales up and down. So we want to have 1, 2, 3, 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this will also affect the time of animation. So if you do this, scales up fast and scales down. So you see that. So if you look at this right now, as this red scales up, you notice we don't have it going because I hit this. So if I do this, you notice what happens. There's what's it called? The clone also seems seamless because they have the same seed value. So, but right now, if you look at this, the cans are just too mechanical. They don't have this springiness to it. So what do I do? What I do is I'm going to put these two guys into fracture objects, and that is what I'm going to use to scale that up. So if we bring this up and create a fracture object, that is what I'm going to use to convert a non-Mograph object to a Mograph object before I can start adding a Mograph effector to them. So if I bring this guy down, those two as a child of this fracture, then select the fracture and add a delay effector. So what you need to do is to make sure that the fracture is set to straight, very important. If you change it to any of these explode, you're going to be having lagging in the animation. So you make it straight, and if you go to the delay effector and you change this to spring and bring this up to, so let me exaggerate this. If you bring this up to 75 and play this animation, you see what happens. You see, so we had this issue. I had the issue when I was doing the animation. You see the way this thing was. So now the problem with this is that first off, the delay is too exaggerated. One, and the other thing is I need to rotate the other can object. So because I tried looking for a solution that didn't work. So the solution I eventually had was to rotate the blue can. So if I bring this to 55, I just want to have a subtle springiness to it. See, you can see the way that red can comes up and goes down a little bit. So let's just make this 60, and then we have that. So I just want to look at the red to see, okay, I think I like that effect. So what I'm going to do now is to change this guy right there. So if you go to the blue can and go to the coordinates, so you can change the coordinates. I think it's the okay, so it's the pitch here. So if you make this 90 and you go back, so let's see what happens. So we have this. That solves that problem. So you can see that this is beginning to look interesting because of just that singular thing that I did, adding that. So if what I had done was just to have taken this to maybe explode or explode and connect, you notice what happens. You see that lag. I noticed that lag was always there. Even if you bring it here, okay, I think this works. So you see this also explode and work. So you can actually use either, so you can check this out and see the one that gives you the effect you're looking at. So I think I will go with this, but in my own test I use the straight, but I can use explode segment. So now what the explode segment will do is going to explode every part. So as the springiness comes up, so let me bring this to 80. So I think we have, see what is happening. Yeah, so you can see the top of this so it is because of this explode that we have it. All right, but if I change this to straight, you don't have that effect. You don't have that cut. They are attached to one another, so you have that. So let me just bring this back to 60. I think 60 is fine for me. All right, so that's how to do that part. So the other part is the text under there. So now the good thing here is that I know where my animations are. So if you look at the scale, I know where I did the scale part. So that will help me to do the text. So I'm going to bring up a Mograph text object and bring this to middle. So let me just quickly do this, and let's bring this to 50 and also move this down just somewhere here. Then for the first object, so this is going to be, so we started with the red can going to the blue can. So we just say this is going to be red can. So you can look for a good text that you want, font that you can just pick any font you like and use it whatsoever you want. So I think this could have been fine, but it's too a few. So let me just work with this kind in here and change this, space them apart. All right, so we have that. So we have the red can, then we also need a blue can. So I'm going to just duplicate this and make this blue. So just change this to blue can. So we have both red can and blue can. So what I'm going to do to these two guys is they are independent of the whole animation we've been doing so far. So we're going to put them in their own group. So this is going to be the text animation. So for the text animation, I have both of them selected. So okay, so I'll have both of these guys selected. So let me just select the red, since the red goes first. Then I have the red selected, go to Mograph. I'm going to add a plane effector. So what the plane effector is going to do is going to display this object, to particular position. So let me bring this to 5 and the cap. So I'm doing this for both because I selected both of them. So we can just check this. Make this 0.5, 0.5, and possibly 3. All right. So what this will do is that it's going to bring this up, and we don't want the position to be that far. So we're going to bring this down. So maybe -10. And the other thing is we're going to come to the scale, go to uniform scale, make this -1. So what -1 will do is going to scale this up. All right, so maybe let's hide this first and let's go to the rotate. So I want to add additional things to this which I didn't add to mine. So you can do the rotation, maybe something like this, 90, and possibly maybe that. So it just rotates up, for you to get that effect. So let's bring this down to 20, so it comes down here. So we can now add this. So I think we should just close this first, then I'll work on this plane and then activate that. So if you go to the fall off, let me go into my camera so I can see that. So if you go to the fall off of this plane object, I want to make it a linear fall off. Then I'm going to rotate this to something like this, 90 degrees. Then scale this up until it meets this. So what we will do with this guy is that we are going to animate this plane object. All right, so we're going to animate the plane object. So how to do that? If you look at these guys, so we have 10, 30, 60, and 80. So the animation didn't start until 10 and to 30. So that means we are going to have the red before we're going to have the red before it goes away. Okay, so let's do that. So at 10, we're going to keyframe this guy, and at 30, we're going to move it up to this place, keyframe, and that holds till 60. I think so. Yeah, it holds till 60, and we are going to keyframe that, and then goes to Z80. Yeah, 80, and bring it back. So we are going to control and drag this up to this place. So we're going to have this animation. Okay, so then let's now activate that scale. So that means at this point we're going to see this, and as it goes, it scales off and comes back. All right. So you can see. So how can we now do it such that when the blue comes up, we have the blue text? And that is pretty much simple. We are done with this. That's the simplest thing actually. So what you do is you will make this the red can and then duplicate this and make this the blue can. So for the blue can, if you notice for the red, this is only, you only have the red here. For the blue, you don't have anything. So we'll bring the blue over to the blue can. As soon as I do this, both of them will show, and that is not what I want. I want the blue to come up anytime the red goes away. So the only thing I need to do is just come to the blue, go to the fall off and invert that, and that solves that problem. So if you do this now, see that. So this looks so mechanical again, and I think I should just bring the position even further. So let's say minus 50, and let's see what we have. That's for both, so we can. So yes, I want them to go down, but even at that, it still looks mechanical. So what we're going to do is we're going to add, you know what we're going to add? We're going to add a delay effector to this guy. So we select both of them, go to Mograph, delay effector. So for the delay effector, we're going to also add spring to it and also make it 60. And let's see what we have. So if we play this up, see that. Okay. So that is pretty much how I did the animation. So you notice you have different sets here. You have one for this and one for that. Now, if you notice for mine, so let me pause this and go to the main. You notice the texturing. Some of these have different colors because right now I can't add different colors to this text in my own, but if you notice we have just 3 colors, so I'll just copy those colors out here. So select this up to this place, copy them out and go over to this and paste them here. So how can we add that? So let's go to the red setup. You can notice we can only add one at a time. So how can I have 3 different shades of that? So that is done by just duplicating this guy. Once you duplicate, so you go to the next one, add the next shade, go to the last one, add the next shade. So you do the same thing for the blue can. So you have 3 sections. So depending on the number of colors, values of colors you want to have, you can just duplicate and you have that. So if you check this out now, you notice you have that effect. So that's how so if you feel that the scale is too small, you can always go back. You know that you can always go back to this and start changing the scales and all that. So I just felt to show you this effect, and if you feel this was helpful, please support me by liking the video, sharing it, because you don't know who might need this for a particular project. And if you are new to my channel, please do subscribe because I do tutorials like this every time. So do have a wonderful day and God bless you. Bye.